Okay, this is AeroWings2 Airstrike for the Sega Dreamcast. As we can see, this is a jet flying game, or a flying game, and well, let's check it out, shall we? Boot up the old Sega Dreamcast. It's always good to get a Dreamcast game going. As I've mentioned before, I don't have too many, so when I stumble across one, I'll usually pick it up if it looks decent. And you know, this is a good example. This game looked decent. It was in good shape, so I picked it up, and you know, it turns out to be a pretty good game. This game was developed by Crave and CRI, published by Sega, released August 27th, 2000, of course, for the Sega Dreamcast. AeroWings2, this is the sequel to Airwings. I've never played Airwings. I wasn't even familiar with the franchise, like I said. Basically just bought the game because it looked decent. What AeroWings ended up being is basically, you can think of it like Pilot Wings. It's like a modern version of Pilot Wings, you know, minus the jetpack and parasailing and all that stuff. Unfortunately, this is just flying planes. But basically, it's a simulation trainer. It's training. You're learning how to fly, and you know, it does it with very good controls. It was pretty realistic for the time for a console game. Graphically, very good, very well done on the Dreamcast. Runs very smooth. Graphics are very crisp. So here you can see the title screen: AeroWings2 Airstrike. You know, you start off on a main menu, and it's pretty much just going through different challenges, and you know, here you're basically getting your pilot's license, and you've got, you know, just all these little tests that you go through, from taking off to landing, you know, to doing a barrel roll, to doing a loop, to doing a corkscrew. You learn all these different maneuvers, how to maneuver the plane. So here's landing, which is, it's fairly basic. Now there's two control schemes to this game as well. There is sort of like an easier mode and a more realistic mode. I'm in the easier mode. So certain things are done automatically, like releasing the brakes on takeoff and lowering the landing gear or raising the landing gear is all done automatically. So if you want a little more control over the game and over the plane, you can choose the more advanced control style. But obviously I'm new to this, and I'm not a big flight sim guy, so you know, if you're not into the flight sims, you probably want to put this on the easy mode. And it's you'll see it's still pretty challenging. You know, landing this plane, it's certainly not as hard as Top Gear on the NES, or F-29 Retaliator on DOS, if anyone remembers that game. I used to love playing that game, but I could never land the plane. You know, for the life of me, could never land the plane. So here you got the instructor talking to you non-stop. He's like, you know, check your altitude and your speed and your angle, and you know, I kept crashing. I couldn't land listening to this guy. So finally, I just turned the volume off and said, screw this. I'm not gonna listen to this guy. I'm just gonna like play this by ear and guess as I'm looking. And this is the first time I did it without listening to the guy. And I landed. As you can see, the landing gear didn't come down to the last minute. That's one annoying thing, having the automatic landing gear on, is sometimes it comes out, sometimes it goes in on its own. It's weird. I guess it's based on your angle and your speed, and sometimes you don't have the angle 100% right, so the landing gear doesn't come down. So that's one thing you might actually want it on the manual controls for. You'll see here the gear came down, and then the gear went up. So it's really annoying. You have the gear coming down and up and down and up, and it's like, what the hell's going on here? That's just part of the automatic system, and you know, like I said, I'm not sure exactly why it doesn't just come down and stay down when you hit a certain altitude, or or what. But so as you can see here, you start off with your your prop planes and stuff, and then eventually you get your jet here, and eventually you unlock more and more jets. There's something like, oh geez, let's see if it says on the back of the case here as to how many planes there are. I'm gonna guess there's like, say, let's just guess, okay, let's just say there's 10 planes in this game, and you have to unlock them. So you're not gonna start off with like the F-15, for example. You'll start off with you know, an F-4 early jet fighter like that. So you'll start off with the smaller jets, and you'll work your way up. And you can see there, a horrible landing, but somehow I managed to make it stick. And you know, like I said, there's all kinds of things. Here's just formation flying. Starts off really basic, but eventually you'll get into cornering and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is a very, very much just a training simulation. You know, don't get this game expecting an action game or an arcade-style flying game. It's nothing like that. It's a complete simulation, training simulation. You know, basically just going through as if you were, you know, trying to become a pilot, learning how to fly, and you learn the basic stuff, like I said, and eventually you'll learn some more advanced maneuvers, and then you'll get into your there's challenges and stuff like this. It's just, there's these targets that you can shoot down, and a lot of the challenges are just shooting down these targets within a set amount of time. And of course it starts off really easy, you know, just a few targets, they're spread out really easily, but it gets harder and harder as the targets they'll get closer together, as you'll see in the next thing coming up. But also eventually they'll start shooting back at you. You'll start doing challenges with fighter planes and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of dogfighting in this game, and you can see the target practice getting a little bit harder in this one. It's a little bit harder. I'm using I think that's the F4, which, you know, handles pretty good for the lower speed stuff, so it's a good plane for this style thing compared to like the F-15. But you can see your throttle and fuel. You know, you have afterburners on some of the jets. You're going to waste fuel if you have the afterburners on all the time, and you won't have enough fuel for the mission. So here's another challenge. This one's really hard, as you can see. It's still just the weather balloons or whatever they are, target things, but they're around buildings and stuff, so you definitely have to have some good maneuverability here as well, and you know what you're doing. But anyways, like I said, you have your throttle control. 60% throttle is the lowest, so that's something you have to consider. Is at 60% it might seem like it's still high, but it's sometimes you'll be stalling and it's hard to maneuver. And then AB is afterburner. If you bring it up to 100% and then press there's basically a throttle up and a throttle down button. So you bring it all the way up, let go, press it again, it goes into afterburner. But like I said, the afterburner, you waste a lot more fuel. Now here we can see we're dogfighting. We have missiles and guns. Another thing that you might not like on the automatic mode is it switches between your missiles and your guns. I believe if you have it in the more advanced mode, you can choose when you want to use the missiles and the guns. Basically what it does now is when you're at a close enough range, it'll automatically switch to the guns. But I find sometimes it doesn't switch back to the missiles when it should. So the planes, you know, it's out of gun range, but it's what you'd think is in missile range, and you can't shoot at it. So once again, I haven't tried it in the more advanced control scheme, but you may want to consider that too. But like I said, this game is definitely for people that are into the simulation style. The dogfights are a very small portion of this game. You basically spend most of the time just training. That's really what the game is about. So.